Hey guys, so I've got this Oz Machine Company Roosevelt that it just came in, so I figured I can walk you through a little unboxing, even though I've already taken it out, and just kind of walk you through what I think about it. So we've got the packaging here, which honestly is super nice. Not a huge packaging guy, but this is nice. I like it. You know, you've got the certificate of conformance up top, so you can see that this one was made in 2023. It's got Magna Cup blade and radial milling, all titanium construction, which I think most of them are. I don't know if maybe I'm mistaken on that, but we've got this. Came with a couple extra screws, so where these are for exactly, not 100% sure. Maybe they just throw a couple backup body screws in there just in case. But yeah, I mean, nice packaging. Everything's pretty sturdy, pretty nice in there, so I'm definitely happy about that. And here's the knife itself. So I guess, spoiler alert, not a huge fan of this. I like it. It's definitely a nice knife. It's a solid knife. But for me, it's like the ergos are nice when you're using it, but I feel like the opening and closing for me just doesn't, maybe I'm just not used to it yet. You know, I've only carried this a couple times so far, so I don't really have a ton of experience carrying it or have it in my pocket all the time or anything, but I don't really love I was gonna say the lock bar access, but really the lack thereof, right? You've got a flat surface here, and like it's easy enough to actuate that. You have plenty of space, but these kind of ridges stick up or a little sharper than I'd like where you're reaching in. And again, it's nothing like significant, you know. It's a nice knife, and using it and everything is nice. And for me, it's like the perfect size for my hand. So you've got the finger choil right up against the blade, and then you have the secondary one. So like size-wise, this is kind of ideal for an everyday carry for me. This is what I prefer size-wise, and the action on it's pretty good. I'm gonna take it apart and put it back together, and we're gonna see if I can tune it at all. This thing, I guess my main complaint with this right now is it came to me duller than a butter knife. I mean, the guy told me like, oh, it's gonna need a sharpen soon. I don't know if I have a piece of paper out here. I'm sure I do somewhere. Let me see. I've got a user manual for my power supply over here. So we're gonna go, and I would say cut this, but like, just so you can get an idea of how dull this is. I'm doing my best here. I'm not like playing this up or anything. You can tell I'm like really struggling here. So like it'll kind of slice paper, but like, you know, I heat the house with wood pellets, right? So they've got these plastic bags that they come in, and this couldn't even cut through one of those bags. And then like I needed to cut a piece of rope, so I tried to cut a piece of rope with it, and it just needs to be sharpened. So that's me complaining about how I need to sharpen this knife. I'm sure once I have it sharpened, it'll be nice to use. The opening, I actually really like. So some knives, I find with frame lock knives, some of them it's tough to keep your fingers off of the lock bar. This one, the design works really well for me to not be pressing on the lock bar when I'm opening. You know, you've got a nice big landing pad for your finger. So like this is how I typically do it when I'm reverse flicking, is have my thumb pushing down and then support on one side and then support with my pointer finger, and then you can flick it open. So like that's fine. And then you've got plenty of area between like the clip and me holding my finger here to normal like flick it open. Or the nice thing is the detent on this particular one isn't super strong, so it's easy enough to slow roll open. So I guess I'm talking myself into actually liking the action more the more I mess around with it. I just don't really like this part of the action, you know, where I've got to reach in here, because this I don't love. I wish this was a little flatter, and maybe they've revised it since then. I don't know how frequently Oz does the quality, you know, like the continuous quality improvements. I'm unaware about that, but overall, I mean, the construction feels really solid. I can definitely speak that the finishing is extremely good as far as I can tell, you know. You've got a really nice, like what's probably an aluminum oxide blast and then a ceramic tumble on the scales. And it looks really good. And then all of the milling and everything too. The milling's all super clean. Everything looks pretty nice and uniform and good. And same thing with the back end over here, you know, a very consistent finishing between the two scales. Maybe they tumble them at the same time, but And then looking at the chamfers on the back end, this backspacer, like this looks great, and the surface finish on it's very nice. Personally, I don't love the stripes down the clip, but it's definitely an intentional finish. You know, they're not doing that because it's on accident. You know, like this is an intentional. They've got that surface finishing on there for a reason. So I do really appreciate that. The clip on this I don't love, but I don't like milled clips in general. You can see like super high tension. I just don't like that. Personally, I like wire clips or I like sheet metal clips, and I know I'm in the minority there, but like I've been carrying this a lot lately, and this clip is awesome. I love it. I love the Spyderco wire clips and most wire clips in general, and I love most sheet metal clips in general. And I'm trying to think of milled clips that I actually enjoy. There's not many of them. I'm having a tough time coming off the top of my head with milled clips that I actually like. Yeah, they're just typically not very good in my experience. Maybe you guys have different experience. Maybe you really love the milled clips. Everybody always says like, oh, but the retention is so much better. I've never had a knife fall out of my pocket in my entire life. You know, let's see, I've got this next to me. I carried this for like years before I was into the more expensive knives. So this is a SOG Trident that I've got the safety on right now. And like, I carried this for a long time. And this sheet metal clip, it's not like it's got crazy retention or anything, but this has never fallen out of my pocket in my entire life. And I've done all kinds of rucks and runs and this thing and that. Like it's never come out of my pocket. I've never lost it. I've never had any kind of serious issue with it. Oh, this whole thing is spinning. Yeah, so the retention thing, I just don't, I don't buy that as a real reason. But, if it makes you feel better, then like, sure. But for me, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So if you're into it, I don't think that's an issue at all. But I don't know. The retention thing, I just don't buy. I don't think that the retention is a good reason to go with this style clip. If you think they look cool, or obviously for the guys with CNC machines, so like Oz, I know he's got the CNCs. So like, it's easier to mill clips than it is to go out and try and bend sheet metal and everything. And I understand that. So like from that aspect, sure, 100%. I can't argue with it. But you got the junk bearings in here. They're not junk. They're probably perfectly adequate. I'm just kind of surprised on how much are these? $800, $700? I have no idea what he charges for these. I got this on the secondary market. But I'm always surprised to see like the cheap, what is that? Like nylon cage bearings. It's like, personally, like go and get skiffs for it. If you're going to make knives and sell them for stupid amounts of money, $700, $800, get some skiffs. Is it gonna kill you? You probably can get cheaper pricing going from direct from skiff anyway. I would imagine. I mean, maybe I don't really know, but I'd imagine if you're doing like bulk buys from him, he probably gives you some sort of maker discount or something. I also realized that I'm working down at the bottom of my table where you guys can't even see. So apparently my camera's at a different angle today. So once I get this all apart, I can actually talk about a couple things. Because I haven't taken this apart before, so I'm pretty curious what it looks like in general. So we're gonna see. All right, let's take this guy out. It's pretty cool that the screws are kind of matched to the interior finish. I am unsure if they do this with like, if you've got black anodized body, if they, ooh, that's strange. Sorry, as I figure this out, you got these two pins in here, and I'm curious if that's like part of the clip. I'm trying to wiggle this guy out and attempt not to break anything. Trying not to. There we go. Interesting. Well, that's one way to do it. So, this is really, I don't know if it's unique. I haven't seen it before, so I'm going to call it unique, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm sure you guys have some experience with knives in some aspect at least. Usually you've got like either a pocket milled or you've got multiple screws. What he's done here is he's got these two pins that are press fit, what look like press fit into place. They could be like peened from this side so that way they can't pull through or whatever. But you've got the two pins. They must be pretty tight tolerance to each other. And then the clip just slides right on. That's really interesting. That's unique. I haven't seen that personally before. If you know any other knives that have that, please point them out to me because I think that's interesting. The only issue I can imagine with this, if you want to get a different clip, you're going to be pretty limited as far as your options go. Like if you want a sheet metal clip, you might not be able to, or at least it's not going to look really good, right? It's going to be pretty thick over there. I've got some calipers out here, I think. So your sheet metal stock, not that most people are probably putting sheet metal clips on these in the first place, but if you were to, let's see, it's gonna be like that. So it's like 85 thou. You're not having an 85 thou sheet metal clip. It almost have to be like the MXG ones that they make for the Chris Reeves knives, where it's like two plates that are stacked and either riveted or screwed together. So that's interesting. I think that's a cool design feature and definitely thought through. Something that always bothers me about these milled clips, they need to hold them somehow when they make them, right? So you've got your fixture holds it from this screw right here. But then the issue I have with this, when you're making this clip, that's one of the easier ways to make it is you put the hole right here. But now this is sliding in and out of your pocket. You got a hole here that has not smooth edges, right? You spend all this time doing this surface milling for the whole thing, right? You can see the tool paths on the clip, right? So you can see the way that they're cutting this is the cutting tool comes down in and they go and they go back and forth, and however many vertical lines that is, 12, 15, whatever. So they spend all this time doing the 3D contour milling, and they got a hole right in the middle that completely ruins like the ability of the clip to slide over and over. And now it's just gonna shred your pants because it's there. So they get points for this little footprint system. I think that's really interesting. I like that it screws from the backside because that keeps it super clean. So you just have the blind threaded hole in here. This sucks. I don't like this. Alex at SPK Knives has it on his. I don't like it on the Lumia because it shreds my pants. And I definitely don't like it on this because it will shred my pants. I haven't carried this enough to have it cause any issues, but in time it definitely will. So it's maybe a nitpick, maybe an actual complaint for me, but I don't love that. And then this may end up being a bad idea. I don't know if this guy's press fit into place or what the deal is. That's a bullshit screw. This bothers the hell out of me because this is probably a 440 screw. I forget what the pitch on the 440s is, but I do have some 256 screws out here. So this is 85 thou. Let me grab a 256 screw and we're gonna compare it. All right, so this is a 256 that I've got right here. It might be 256. Yeah, so it's 82 thou. So this screw is 256, which is a very, 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 very small thread pitch. So I want to see what the effective length is here because I want to nitpick this stupid, pointless detail, even though you're seeing like basically no stress on that whatsoever. But all right, I think that's probably about right. So 65 thou. Let's see. That'd be like 2 full threads, roughly, something like that. Best case scenario. So that's not my favorite thing. Yeah, it's in there pretty good. I don't know if I feel like pulling this out. So I'm not sure if it's pressed into place, but usually the way you can get these ones that double as lock bar stabilizers out is just press it in a little bit. And this guy doesn't, it's like a loose tooth. You gotta just do it in barely the right direction. Maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. It's very weird. I wonder if there's another like No, there wouldn't be a pin or anything. I don't know. I'm gonna give this another minute and try and wiggle it out, but it doesn't seem to want to come out. Not at least as far as I can tell. I wonder if I use this old knife blade and try and pry it out like a mongoloid. The smartest thing I've ever done in my life. Let's see. Can we get this out without ruining the knife? Question of the day. We're getting there. This is gonna be such a bad idea. Scrap this whole thing. All right, there we go. So this is a pretty interesting piece. I was pretty curious to take this apart, mostly because I wanted to see what the deal was with this specific piece. So you can see you've got a counter bore here for the screw head, which is, I guess, one way to do it. Honestly, I don't know how I would have done this differently. Personally, I don't really know. I don't know. I can't think of a better way to do it, but I don't know if I love that it's only 2 full threads here. Now, you saw how much of a pain this was for me to get out, and they're keeping a pretty good profile tolerance on this and this, so the parts mate really well. So all that screw is really doing is holding it exactly in place where it is. But you can see they've got two of these ball bearings either pressed or staked in. I'd have to look at this a little closer to be able to say exactly how these are held in place. Pretty interesting. But yeah, you can see you've got that there, and these both interface to the holes in the blade. Come on. So you've got the dual detents here and here, right? So these come from the back side, so it'd be like this. Yeah, so those will sit in just like that. So you have the 2 detents. So there's that. But when I was looking at this, at least when it's assembled, it looked to me like this ball here was actually doing the lockup. But the actual case is you've got a little ground lock face right here. So I don't know how I feel about this. Mostly because, how do I articulate this? I don't know how I feel about this because you don't have a whole lot of area here. So the whole benefit behind the hardened steel lock bar, first of all, it's not titanium, so you're not going to have as bad a lock stick. But this is going to wear down over time, especially, I guess it depends on how hard this is. If it's hardened AEBL, it could be pretty hard. Not as hard as Magna Cut, it's not going to be 64 Rockwell probably. But yeah, I don't know. It'll work, but you'll probably have to replace this instead of being able to regrind it or be able to do whatever. And I do wonder if this wears into a certain point, is that ball going to interfere? I don't really know. That's more like me asking questions. And I haven't spent a ton of time measuring all of the individual components of this knife. So I can't say one way or the other, but yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I love it. But either way, I guess it's not a huge deal. Milling wise on the inside, I think they're doing a nice job here. If you look at the relief here, that's there and got no issues with it. And then they're avoiding milling one of these triangles to interfere with the little relief pocket where they're going over. I feel like they probably could have fit something here. Not that this is a particularly heavy knife, it's a light knife. But I do feel like they could have done some sort of milling there. Maybe it would have looked really dumb. And I guess continuing this line on, be super small, probably not worth the time. So I don't really know about that. But yeah, I think the milling on the inside is nice. They're using a nice bullnose or ball end mill. You can see there's a nice radius on the root there. They've got 2 holes for pins forward and back, which is good, prevent any rotation or anything. So I like that. And then you've got the little over travel stop that the lock insert's doing double duty as, and then you've got your press fit pins from the back end. I'm curious diameter wise what we're looking at, if one of those is smaller than the other, if they're both the same. 65 and a half, 66, 64.5. So it's probably the same. 2 16th-inch pins, and then grinding them down for the clip. I really like that. I think that's a pretty interesting solution. I don't want to call it innovative or anything, because I don't really know. Maybe somebody did that like 500 years ago, and I'm just way behind the times or something. Like I said, I don't know. But I like it. I think it's a good solution, and it's definitely, for, at least in my opinion, pretty creative. So now the fun part of getting this stupid thing back in here. All right, let's see. Now I got to be really careful with this, because we've only got 2 threads here to go into the scale itself. So why don't I put this down and try and press it in like that. Nope, that's not going to do it. It's one of those things, like I feel like I should probably be watching manufacturers' videos before I go and do anything dumb, like, you know, take apart a knife that I have no idea how it's supposed to be taken apart or put back together. But, you know, live dangerously and whatever. So I'm gonna try and do this on camera. I keep going to like the spot where oh, that's why. This looks continuous to me. Like, it looks like it just kind of comes up, but this actually kind of hooks into place. So I had to do one side and then the other. I feel like them chamfering this would have been a good idea for making installation a little bit easier. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm an idiot. But something I thought was interesting about this, the dual detent ball is pretty cool. I don't know a ton of other knives that do this. And honestly, I don't really know the benefit of it, because it feels like one of them would be doing like like less than half the duty. You know, one would be doing 2/3 and the other would be doing 1/3 or whatever. Like, there's no way that both of these are doing the exact same amount of work and tension and everything, or at least that's what I would think. Maybe they are, but I don't know. Yeah, this isn't super happy going back together. I guess it wasn't super happy coming apart, so I shouldn't be surprised here. This is one of those things, like, you gotta really line it up dead on, and then I'm gonna try and press it into place. There we go. Snaps right in. That was a pain. And I'm not saying that was a pain as in that's a bad thing. It was just kind of annoying to do. I don't think there's any problem with that being a tight fit, and it should be. You don't want this wobbling around. You don't want it moving. This should be as tight as you can physically get it. If you have to press it in, you have to press it in with like an arbor press or whatever, then fine. I don't have any actual problem with that. That's just me complaining from like a friendliness standpoint of trying to assemble this in a timely manner because I'm being videotaped. So that's my only complaint there, and it's not a legitimate complaint. It's just more me venting. But I also put myself in this situation, so don't really have any right to complain. I'm gonna put the clip on now. So that goes on nice and easy. I love that. And then we've got the longer screw that goes in here, which is completely fine. So that's good. Then I'll show this whole assembly once I get it together. So I really like that these screws match the inside. Now, like I said, I don't know if they only aluminum oxide blast those screws for the aluminum oxide chassis, or if like the glass blasted ones, if they do it to match or what. But I do really like that they're matchy, and I think that's pretty slick. Especially because the outside hardware is different. Get a little like I guess it technically is two-tone, but I like it. I think that's kind of neat, and that's a nice feature. So I like to see that. Now I'm gonna re-oil this because there's some nasty oil on it that I don't know what it is or where it's from, but not a huge fan. That's a pretty nice tight press. It's not a press fit, but it's a really nice like tight slip fit in there. So big fan of that. I really like when things snap together like that and they're pretty sturdy and firm. So I won't say like build quality wise that's the best thing I've ever felt, but I'm not gonna say it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. For me, I really like when especially interface holes like this that are pretty important for the knife operation. I like when they're as tight tolerance as you can get them and still maintaining the action that you want. So I think that's a plus for me. And maybe for you, you have a different opinion, and that's fine. You're allowed to be incorrect. There we go. And then we throw the scale of the knife just for good luck. So yeah, we'll drop the bearing on there. And that looks good. Everything's sliding super easy. The pocket that's milled in there for this is really, really nice. Something kind of interesting. This is a pretty thin wall right there between the bearing and the lock bar relief. I do wonder if they couldn't extend that down a little bit for some reason. You know, I feel like they could have gotten it a little closer. That's a super, super, super thin wall, and I've already put the calipers away. Or not put them away, but I've already put the bearing in there, and I don't really feel like taking them back out to measure that. That's a thin wall, though, you know, like 10, 15 thou, something like that. So extremely thin, which, you know, probably isn't an actual problem. And obviously, like, it held up, and it's never going to see any stress during the operation of the knife, so that's not a problem, but just kind of interesting. Ooh, what's going on here? It's either rust or just junk. Yeah, just junk. So it's a Magna Cup blade. I was about to be really concerned if on a relatively smooth finish knife, if there was some sort of rust on it. But that looks pretty good. Interesting shaped holes. I don't know if you can see on the camera. They're not really round. They're more like a square deal. So I don't really know what's going on there or why they're like that, especially because these are just balls, you know? It's not like Grimsmo where they have the pin in there, like the flat pin. These are balls, so you would think that you do this normally. I don't really know. And I was curious about why they would have the second ball wider or two. Like I said, like, is it a detent strength thing or what? But it's actually so that way. Now that I've got oil on here, you can't see. One of these detents, you can see this outer one comes off of the track. So it's pretty tough detent track-wise to design something. You know, I've been going through this a little bit myself. It's tough to design something that won't come off the blade, that's in a reasonable spot on the handle. So having two like this is actually a pretty good solution. I'm sure plenty of people do this, but now, you know, you get to this point, and then this detent ball takes over, and then you're going back on. You can't feel this in the operation of the knife at all. Like I said, I really didn't even know that it came off of the blade, or the detent ball came off the track anyway. So obviously they're doing a pretty good job. So I'm going to draw the oil back on here. But yeah, I mean, fooled me. I'm not going to put this on yet. I got a bunch of other stuff to do. That'd be silly, and then I'm going to turn the thing upside down and drop it 800 times in the meantime. So we have a pin in here. This is kind of curious for me because you got this big-ass clearance hole for the pin. That doesn't make any sense to me. What's going on here? I don't really know why you would do that. Maybe there's a legitimate reason, but I can't really think of one. I don't see why you would want a clearance hole there. I guess all function-wise backspacer, right? You're trying to maintain the spacing on the back of the knife. That's like your primary function, I guess you'd say. Obviously, like, that's going to be what the main purpose of that part of the knife is going to do. Secondary function is to prevent the scales from rotating. So you're doing that with the pin, but I don't know. I guess it's not necessary. It's just typical, you know? Because typically you'd see one screw or two screws or whatever, and then this pin would be like a pivot point between the two. And I guess if you've got two screws, the backspacer's not going anywhere, you know? It's just fastened with two on one side right now, and it doesn't move. So why do you need to have it pinned in place, I guess? So there's no need for it. It's just kind of unorthodox. So it threw me off when I see this big clearance hole. But it's not a problem, and there's no, like, issue with not having it be the way that you'd typically see it. So I don't have a problem with that. It's just kind of different. And sometimes different's good. So maybe that's a big benefit, and they're able to assemble it easier because they're not dealing with super tight fitment holes, and they're able to keep tolerance on this part loose, so that way they don't need to worry about it, and they can kind of rip through it on the machine faster. There is no oil in my screwdriver also. I don't know how many of you picked that up, that I tried to oil my bearings with my screwdriver. It doesn't actually do that, in case you were wondering. Finish on the inside of these bearing pockets looks kind of trash, honestly. Just doesn't look very good. But the action on this is good. I mean, you're seeing the way that I'm flicking it open and closed and everything. So it's definitely not hurting the action. Now that's kind of curious. Usually you'd put this all together and it would be like rock solid, right? But I'm getting a lot of rocking. I wonder if I switched the pins or something by accident. They looked like they were about the same size, but once I screw this together, I'm sure it'll be rock solid. It just feels kind of blah right now, I guess is the best way to put it. I got one screw in and now it feels good, so I think it's fine. Just didn't feel good right away. So, got this, got that. All right. Curious why they wouldn't carry this finish on through too, right? You'd think you'd want to wrap this pattern all the way around and have it go all the way through. It's kind of weird. I'm just now noticing that, and like everything else that I've said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's not necessarily any issue with not carrying that pattern through. It's just I'd kind of expect you to. I wonder if there was a reason that they terminated it where they did. That feels decent. Could probably go tighter. Keep going from this side. That feels like about good. So the action on this is a little bit lighter than I'd prefer. I like a little bit of a heavier detent, and this one is like pretty light. But honestly, it locks out reliably, and I'm trying to make it fail right now. And like I could definitely probably make it fail by poorly flicking. But it's pretty reliably opening up. I don't really have any hesitancy about this only going halfway unless I intentionally fail it. So overall, I mean, I think it's a really good knife. I think the build quality seems really nice. There's a couple funny design details. I would like to have seen them figure out a way to make this screw engagement a little bit better, and whether that, I don't know. How you do that, I don't know exactly. Maybe that looks like a little threaded section sticking out of the other side, like into where the backspacer is or something. I don't know exactly how that needs to look, but I don't love that it's only a little bit there. But I'd also bet nobody has ever had one of these shears screw off or any of the threads tear out. So it's one of those things, like maybe it's not actually an issue in the first place. 2 full threads is gonna hold, like if you're talking about a normal bolt that has 10 threads or whatever, it's like 97% of the load I think is in the first 3 threads. And I think it's, I don't remember, 75% in the first 2. So it's just that you're proportionally higher loading these threads than they need to be. But also, it's tapped titanium. It's going to be a pretty strong ultimate tensile strength or yield strength anyway. So I don't know if it's actually an issue in the first place. So I'll go through whatever other design details I can think of. I like that they've rounded off of the deployment hole here, and the swedge on the back of the blade is nice. And I really like the jimping on the back end here. So when you're using it, you've got something to kind of land on. This is a good level of like sharpness for me, where it's not going to rip up your pockets and it's not going to tear everything apart, but it's going to give you a little bit of traction there. Personally, design-wise, I don't love the jimping in the back of the handle. I don't have a problem with it per se, but I just don't love it. But this does line up really well. This looks pretty good, and you'd expect it to. I mean, this is all CNC, so like I hope it would all line up. But that looks really good. And then I had one last thing that I wanted to comment about, but I might have completely forgotten about it. So the detent wise, right? Why I thought this was a ball that was when it was locking up, and I guess it's kind of obvious now seeing the little nub stick out, but it kind of looks like the ball is doing the work. And if, I gotta bring a flashlight out here so that way I can look in. But it does look like the ball might be doing the locking up if you were to look at it. And then also the balls being overhanging on the edge, you really can't get the double clutch action to happen on this knife. Like that's kind of where it pops up and onto the blade, you know, like there. How many degrees have you rotated at that point? Like 1, 2, you know? It's one of those things, like if you're unlocking this and you put it even, whatever, 10 degrees or something, it's already off the blade, you know? So I like that. I think that's good. So for me, that's a big plus. I don't really like the whole double clutching thing where you get it to here and then you go and shake the knife shut, but then it snaps back open because it's not fully off the detent ramp yet. So that I really like. I think they're doing a really good job there. Yeah, I mean, design-wise, I think it's pretty cool. It's a neat knife. For me, the pocket clip sucks. I don't like the milled pocket clips. For some knives, I'm willing to compromise on that and carry them anyway, like the Lumia. I don't like the pocket clip on that either, but I'm willing to compromise because I really like the knife. This, I'm not in love with it yet. Maybe once I sharpen it, I'm going to like it a lot more. I guess we'll see. But size-wise, this is ideal for me, you know. This is like the perfect carry size knife for me. The blade geometry is definitely super useful, so I'm excited to get it sharpened up and actually start carrying it, because carrying this once or twice and trying to use it with the edge that it has right now, it's just pretty terrible. But that's not a criticism of the knife. That's just part of knife ownership. Like, you got to sharpen every once in a while. So if you guys got any questions about this, I'm sure there's a million different reviews that are all over the place already. I don't know if I'll be able to answer any questions, but let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.